We're honored today to have with us Mike Workman, who is filed and running for Oklahoma Labor Commissioner. And in this race, as the Democrat, Mike, tell us what brings you to this point. Why did you file for this office?
Well, I remember 4 years ago when the election results came in, I kind of wondered what would be happening with some of our new elected officials. And I'm a constituent of each and every one of them and all, but the current Commissioner of Labor, I refer to him as the anti-labor commissioner, did two things that really got my attention. One is his comment that he's very well known for, is referring to public employees as feral hogs, and also closing the Tulsa office. And I really can't remember which one was the tipping point to make me consider running, but both of those together convinced me to file for office. And no longer a candidate, I'm proud to be the nominee of my party.
You are the nominee of the party, that's true.
And there's a big difference because this is my 18th and last month to be a candidate, but it's much less time there since the filing deadline that I became a nominee. And it's the fourth contested race on the ballot, and I appreciate you going 4 races down on the ballot, because I know a lot of people are only paying attention to the governor's race, education, and the 2 U.S. Senate seats, but we also have contested statewide for lieutenant governor, for labor commissioner, and I think all 6 of those offices are important.
So you're offended that he closed the Tulsa office?
Yes.
And that he made a joke?
Well, he's made an ongoing insult to people. When he was asked did he really mean to call public employees feral hogs, his first response was, "Oh no, I meant school teachers." Well, even if you weren't a former public employee, and I am, and even if you're not a former public school teacher, and I'm that also, I think a lot of people were offended. When he was asked to apologize or resign, he's done neither. In fact, he's dug the hole deeper. Now he's saying I was referring to bureaucrats. So if you don't like public employees or school teachers or public or bureaucrats in public or private business and all, you have a current anti-labor commissioner who, instead of showing the respect for the wage earners in Oklahoma, which is what the office is supposed to be for, is actually continuing to show it disregard to this day.
Well, now I'm curious, because he was really pointing that, as you have described it just now, at the tendency of government to grow, like they were wild, like they were multiplying in the wild. And yet, as labor commissioner, is your administration more focused on growing government employment or allowing enterprise to grow employment?
It'll be more defined, the office is, as it's defined, applying that procedure and all. Right now, the job is created to help show respect for the wage earners, the men, women, and children of Oklahoma, including children. And I know most people like myself were working when they were 15 or 16 and all. That's why they have a child labor division. They have wage adjustment, benefits, and working conditions. Those are the major things that they should be standing up for. And the concern isn't how many staff you have, are you doing the job? And I don't think he's doing the job as effectively, especially the access that was lost with the closure of the Tulsa office.
As I understand it from the documentation that came out at the time, there were not enough enough regular traffic to justify keeping the office open, and every function that office did, it continues to be available here in Tulsa, but through other state offices and sharing those capacities. So what was the point? If there was not enough traffic for the office, then why do we need that expense? Because, I mean, with due respect, it's the taxpayers that pay for those salaries in that office.
The office doesn't exist solely for the purposes of receiving visitors, and that 7 visitors per week is disputed by people in that building where the Department of Labor is there and all. But we had about 12.5 employees there before, and it's not just this administration, it goes back to previous Commissioner Lloyd Fields, previous Commissioner Brenda Renault, and back. It's the only statewide office that doesn't have a staff presence on the eastern half of the state. It's not just the Department of Labor. We have Attorney General, the governor has a Tulsa office, we have a lot of agencies, a lot of staff, and it shouldn't matter whether you live in Poto or Shoto or Godibo or Tulsa, everyone in the state should be able to have access to the office, and the eastern half of the state contains half of the population. Of those 18 people or so that were employed, each and every one of them got a voluntary buyout. 3 of them retained their jobs and are working out of their home. He did the wrong thing in the wrong way. When you eliminate a job, as the voluntary buyout did, you're supposed to notify the Department of Commerce, to notify Workforce Oklahoma, so that they can help these people get jobs either in state government or the private sector, so that all of us don't have to be paying unemployment. Some of those people are still unemployed to this day, and they were told that the reference would say their job was eliminated. That's not what happened. Some of them are looking for a job and they're being told falsely that they were fired for cause. Now that's not just ironic, it's tragic that they could file a complaint with the Oklahoma Department of Labor. The very agency that's supposed to be preventing bad termination practices is the office that actually committed the wrongful terminations.
Let me ask you a little bit on your qualifications. Now, you've been a teacher, you've been a public employee. What specifically in your background speaks to experience that would be helpful in this office?
When I was a public school teacher, as a band director, I was involved with teacher organizations. We used to joke that we only cared about 3 things: salaries, benefits, and working conditions. Everything else tends to take care of itself once you get those 3 things done. The job of labor commissioner stands for, by no coincidence, for the same 3 things: to stand up to make sure that every person who's working in Oklahoma.
Okay, now I was kind of asking for your background. Yes, could you?
I've involved in marketing, public relations. I've worked with private businesses, worked in political campaigns for several decades. I've helped get a lot of other people elected. Haven't won every election I've helped out on, but you never win them all. And I'm hoping that this time, as the candidate nominee, that I know I'm the underdog, but I hope I can pull off an upset on November 4th and become the pro-labor commissioner, the pro-wage earner, rather than the anti-labor commissioner we have now.
I do understand you've been around at a lot of meetings. Some of those I've seen you at and attended with you on, but I'm most curious because there's a lot of verbiage out there actually it was very easy typing Mike Workman, Occupy, and all kinds of things came up. Could you explain your relationship with the protest group Occupy Tulsa? And if you could tell me, what one thing was it that they wanted Tulsa or Wall Street to do for them that would have made them happy?
The question of income inequality is what Occupy movement stood for. I attended one meeting shortly after the group started out of curiosity. I've attended lots of meetings. I've attended meetings of organizations where I don't agree with their viewpoint. I may or may not agree with their viewpoint. On Occupy, I went out of curiosity. I agree with the premise that income inequality is a problem in this country, and it's a problem that needs to be addressed by everyone in the political and the government and the social arena.
Okay, now that's fun. That's just fun. I think I have finally found an honest and forthright liberal to talk to. So if you would tell me, income equality, how do you expect to make that happen in a free enterprise system? Do you then prefer communist and literally wage and price controls and other things that are proven failures in economic history?
Well, first, I prefer the term raging moderate.
Raging moderate.
41 years ago, I went directly from teenage Republicans to young Democrats. Didn't look back. I've been involved.
By the way, I heard they're grateful.
Well, there's another joke there, but I'll save that for another time.
Okay.
But no, I was raised by a Republican oil man. I campaigned for my father when he ran for office as a Republican. I would gladly do it again today, but he's passed away. But his Republican Party that I was raised in no longer exists. It's changed so many times that he didn't even recognize it.
Okay, could we speak to your party particularly? What we're seeing from Barack Obama is the greatest jerk to the left that has been affected in this country in history. So do you agree with President Obama's policies or do you not?
The policies I agree with are the ones that both chambers of Congress pass and the president signs, and then we're obligated as labor commissioners to implement those.
Okay.
That would include the Affordable Care Act, which is one of the benefits that a labor commissioner needs to be helping implement and helping extend to the men, women, and children of Oklahoma.
So you would be the Affordable Care Act's most highest elected promoter in Oklahoma should you win this office?
Well, with four statewide executive offices, it depends on how many of those are elected. I know Governor Joe Dorman would be a strong supporter. I know Governor Mary Fallin is hesitant to accept the Medicaid expansion, unlike Republican governors
okay,
in
so
most other states.
I'm just curious because
About me.
I'm trying to focus on you.
Yeah.
Yes,
I would be standing up.
You would be standing up for that.
For any lawful wage, benefit, or working condition to make sure that the laws are followed and implemented.
Now, you understand this president only believes in energy production from the ground up. As a son of an oil man, as someone who's native of Oklahoma, how can you side with a president who has so restricted and harassed and used bureaucracy to abuse power in making energy more expensive for every American?
Well, one of the best benefits my father did was raise me. He said, talk policies, not party. And I've always focused on the policies of both the Republican Party I was raised in and the Democratic Party I have adopted 40 years ago, the oldest and largest political party in the country. And I can sit down, and I've worked in state legislatures in other states and such. I've worked with people in both parties. I've listed office holders of both political parties as references for me when I go to jobs, simply to show that I'm not tied to either political party. I'll stand up for a policy and implement any law, whether I agree with it or don't agree with it.
But what I am pointing out is that these policies of this president and the Democratic Party are so far to the left as to be unrecognizable in any other generation. Are you supportive of that continual transition to centralized control of economics, medicine, education, everything that Americans do?
Well, unlike the current anti-labor commissioner, I'm not running against Barack Obama. I'm running against Mark Costello, the anti-labor commissioner. And I want to discuss the issues that will apply in the state of Oklahoma over the next 4 years. If he's reelected, he'll be a lame duck, and I may be coming back in 4 years to talk to you about an open seat for labor commissioner. I'm going to be 64 years old next week. If I'm elected, I'll be serving 4 or 8 years at the pleasure of the voters. If not, I'll be retiring during the first term.
I got to ask you a strange question because I did kind of look in the official record. Do you have a driver's license?
I qualify and have a public ID, photo ID.
You have a public ID.
I have an Oklahoma ID, and I use that when I vote.
How do you drive? I mean, how do you get around?
I get rides with people. Sometimes in emergencies, I'll drive myself.
This year in Creek County, I believe you were arrested for driving without a license. Is that true? Or
I received the traffic ticket, and it was cheaper to not contest it than it was to contest it.
why would you not go ahead and get a driver's license?
Because I have a past offense, a non-moving violation in Texas that I'm contesting, and I can't get it contested and can't get the paperwork cleared up in time. Sometimes it's cheaper just to cut your losses and go forward.
Is that really the reason you want the Tulsa office, so you can walk there?
No, I wouldn't be able to walk there. I would be able to take a public bus down there, as I do usually when I go downtown, simply because it's easier to park. It's easier to avoid the parking problems when you go downtown. When I reopened the Tulsa office on my second full day in office, it may or may not be in the state office building just west of the convention center, where it's been under the previous several labor commissioners. I don't know where it'll be located, but I know we'll have a Tulsa office. And we may also need to look at making it more accessible by opening one-day temporary offices, like the first Monday in Muskogee, or the second Thursdays in Tishomingo, or a Wednesday in Woodward.
Okay.
We need to have access to all 77 counties, not just Oklahoma City and Tulsa.
Going back to a little bit to the history here, you were a member of MoveOn.org, or had access, or were there local coordinators here at some point? Is that true?
I helped organize Move On Tulsa and served as the local coordinator and served as the state regional coordinator for several years.
What were the objectives of that group?
To pass affordable health care. And that's a major issue and it's there. And just recently there was a big digital sign just west of the state capitol building pointing out that 144,000 Oklahomans are not receiving health care due to the failure of Oklahoma to extend Medicaid in Oklahoma. I think that number's higher than 144,000 now, but it means a lot to me because I'm one of those 144,000. I'm a cancer survivor. I went without health insurance for over a decade because of one biopsy that said I had skin cancer melanoma, and no one wanted to insure me, and I understand why, but I just got mine back just a few months ago.
Well, there are so many people that are finding their insurance premiums that are going through the roof. It was promised on the Affordable Care Act that, or Obamacare if you prefer, that...
Or Romney Care, which is where it came from.
Well, but Romney was more specific in that it was a state thing. This was a national thing. And, you know, there's a big difference between a state having a program to take care of its people and the nation trying to do that in so many diverse markets. But explain to me how a president can retain your loyalty and lie so often, because we are not able to keep our doctors, and this is one thing that was promoted heavily by MoveOn.org, and one would assume you in this effort here in Oklahoma.
Reasonable minds would differ.
Yeah, well, and it was also suggested that the cost would be no more than $2,500 a month or a year for a family, and that cost has gone through the roof. So everything promised with the Affordable Care Act, including their website, their rollout, their sign-ups, everything has been a cluster, a train wreck. And you're saying that we should give more money and more time to a failure that cannot produce, given hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars in promotion and organization?
I'm not running for governor or legislature. I'm not running for president or Congress or U.S. Senate.
Okay.
A labor commissioner cannot make the laws. We are obligated to fully and faithfully execute the Constitution and laws of the United States and of this state.
But you were saying as labor commissioner that you would advocate for the Affordable Health Care Act.
I would advocate that we faithfully execute the federal health care proviso that's passed Congress, the executive branch, and the U.S. Supreme Court.
It happened when the Democrats all controlled those things. Especially both Congress and the presidency, and we'll see if the Supreme Court continues that position, which was convoluted. But anyway, we want to do that. Let's go back to the Labor Commission office. What will you do in the operation of the office different than has been done? The employees have gotten raises. The state has provided more tasks for them because they are effective, they are productive, they have seen their internal records on how many cases and what they do has increased, so they're more productive, they're paid more, they seem to be happy. What would you do differently than in that office?
Well, first, making it more accessible, and that would be, again, by having a Tulsa office and even temporary offices in other parts of the state, like one day a month where we could go to different parts of the state to make it easier for people to access this. Because it's not just salaries, benefits, and working conditions. It's also people with locksmiths, the different licenses. There's, almost 80, there used to be 85 staff people there, and there used to be, I think at one time by coincidence, 85 different types of licenses that people could receive. I would make it easier for people to obtain their license, like at Tulsa Tech. If a person gets a welding certificate, it used to be that the Department of Labor had a person certified on site, so the person didn't have to physically go to Oklahoma City to apply for the welding license from the state of Oklahoma. And I'd like to see that restored. One of the best things the current labor commissioner's done is he's built on what Lloyd Fields did, so that now you can renew any license in Oklahoma by using your cell phone or a handheld device. I think that is something we need to be doing more of. It is, but we have a good staff. They've effectively worked for many years. Most public employees, I think most people would say, are probably underpaid rather than overpaid. They have been effective. But the way you deal with asbestos problem isn't to decrease the number of asbestos inspectors, as the current anti-labor commissioner did. He said that the 3 current people are doing the work of the 5 that used to be there. But think what would happen if we had 5 people there. Asbestos can be a problem. Now, sometimes
Wait, just a second, okay? Because
Okay.
that's been a long known problem.
yes,
And they're not using it now.
even to the point where some people
that
don't even know what
the
asbestos
traffic is going down. Yeah, to the point someone who doesn't know. So, I mean, are you beating a dead horse that's actually ought to be antiqued rather than discussed?
Well, I think elevator inspections are important to know that the Department of Labor certifies every elevator in the state of Oklahoma. Some of that's subcontracted out. Every amusement ride is authorized as safe. Every state doesn't have a state certification.
So you're
Oklahoma's one
basically
that
saying
does.
you're going to continue the same policies of the existing labor commissioner, but you're calling him the anti-labor
No, I'm
labor
going to follow
commissioner.
the current policies of the state of Oklahoma as the legislature has designated and budgeted for staff. I'm not going to do what he calls right. He says he's right-sizing the staff. I'm saying that there's certain jobs that are being neglected. We're putting the safety.
No, wait a minute.
We're putting
If-
the safety of.
If he's not following the law, if he's not following the legislature, then he's breaking the law. Is that what you're saying today?
As I said, he did the wrong thing the wrong way. He didn't follow the law of Oklahoma when the Tulsa office was closed. He didn't make the proper notifications. Unfortunately, the only people who could file a complaint of that are the people who lost their jobs.
Well, if the people
It's
who lost
complaint
their jobs have no complaint, what's your issue? And why do you feel like it's necessary to get into it?
Well, one in particular is not going to file a complaint because they're still unemployed. They're still trying to get a job, and they know that they're going to have a difficult time making a reference if they were going public with a complaint.
How long have they been unemployed?
Over 3 years.
Okay.
Because the current labor commissioner didn't meet his signed agreement with that person with the voluntary buyout.
You've mentioned you're a campaign professional. You've done this before.
Yes.
You know these kinds of things, and that your record's going to be looked at. Are there arrests on your record that are questionable? Are there things? I mean, the not having a driver's license for a statewide candidate is kind of odd, don't you think? Are there other things that you have there that are going to come out?
Well, the joke is that overdue library book from my college days. No. I'll be glad to respond honestly to any questions people have, but
Was there a child abuse arrest?
no, never. I've never been arrested for child abuse.
Well, okay. At this point, I got to ask, because I'm confused. The report, which is assault and battery upon a minor, I believe, domestic assault and abuse, with Crystal, who was a DHS,
My granddaughter.
your granddaughter. Okay, and what happened on that? You were trying to take her phone away, but the police report says that there was marks around her throat and bruising around her eye.
5 years ago, my stepdaughter died in our home. The joke was that we inherited her daughter and her dog, and we still have the dog, and the dog was easy to raise. A 15-year-old who had just lost her mother to breast cancer, whose father didn't want to have her. Her grandmother and I adopted her as her foster parents. Teenagers are difficult at best.
I've heard that.
You've heard that.
I've heard that.
She did not enjoy the fact that sometimes we would take away her cell phone for disciplinary reasons. When she physically responded against her grandmother or me or both, as her foster parents, we were required by the state of Oklahoma to call the police, and we did. At this particular incident, I called the police. The police showed up, didn't ask any questions. I was arrested, wrongfully arrested, and after a little time, when they finally stopped and investigated, they found out they arrested the wrong person. Charges were dismissed. Now, the question is, does this make a person who was wrongfully arrested a better labor commissioner or should not be considered for labor commissioner? The problem is that people file complaints with the Department of Labor because they were also treated wrongfully by a system. They were either wrongfully terminated, they were wrongfully denied part of their salaries, a benefit, or a working condition. I can understand because of a personally awkward situation I had with my own granddaughter, who's now 20 years old and now given us a 2-year-old great-grandson. So there's some positives in here and all.
Okay.
But raising a teenager is difficult. Oklahoma has the highest rate of wrongful convictions, and this one never got to that point. Crystal And Christine and I showed up at court prepared to testify that the police had arrested the wrong person, and that's why charges were dismissed, because they realized that the police had made a mistake. There was an arrest, and it was determined by the judicial system that it was a wrongful arrest.
Okay.
Now, the question is, should I be considered for labor commissioner because of this situation? I think because of dealing with that awkward situation, I can better identify with the people who file complaints for wrongful actions by their employers, which is what the job of labor commissioner is, to make them whole.
Well, and part of the buzz out there, and this is why I'm kind of surprised, because I know you would have done or had somebody do for you opposition research on you to find out what was out there. And the Occupy people were very offended and asserted that you were violent. Now, I don't see you as a violent man, but if there was the one charge there, and then several indications on the internet. Can we not clean that up for you? Is that not possible to resolve? I mean, a lady by the name of Stephanie apparently is still embittered or angry about some of the move-on mail, email spamming, and other kinds of efforts there that you were involved in. And I'm curious if it doesn't raise a general concern.
The person you mentioned filed 3 wrongful accusations for protective orders, and in all 3 cases, 3 judges told her that her accusations were false. There are people who misuse the judicial system, and she's one of them, and I feel sorry for her. She's been told by a judge to keep her personal political arguments out of the judicial system. And she's also owes the state of Oklahoma for malicious filing for the 3rd and most recent time she filed here in Tulsa County. She may have her truck taken and sold at public auction to pay for the punitive fine that a judge assessed her. You get in public life, you deal with everybody, the people you like and the people you don't like. You have to deal with everyone, and you have to deal with every law, whether you like it or don't like it, whether you agree with it or don't agree with it.
Let's jump subjects.
Okay.
What is the best personal benefit that you believe all Oklahomans, including Comanche County and, my favorite big city in Oklahoma, Arnett, out there?
Yes, being David Arnett, I can understand.
Well, it's I've never been there, but I really want to go, and it's very close to Texas. I don't want to go there, but just for fun. But what would you see that every Oklahoman would gain by your winning as labor commissioner?
Well, first, I'd be changing the disrespect offer to respect. I'd be making sure that we more quickly responded to wage and benefit contesting, to make sure that we faithfully execute and that the staff has all the resources they need for child labor investigations, for elevator inspections, amusement rides, license requirements and such. These are kind of the nuts and bolts issues and all that I think, having worked for state governments in different states, would give me the benefit and perspective. I've worked in private sector, worked in public sector. I think having that dual experience helps me to do that.
Thank you for your time. I've asked some difficult questions. You've been incredibly gracious and open in your answers, and I appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
And I always close with a Workman for Labor, saying that don't forget November 4th, we have Workman for Labor.